Welcome to DREEMM, where we are focused on connecting to and building community. We are committed to helping individuals break cycles. We are delighted that you have taken the opportunity to join us. So prepare yourselves for this week's teaching and equipping session. Get ready to be educated, equipped, and set free as you listen to this week's broadcast. And thank you for joining us.
Hey, DREEMM family. Hello from the beautiful Chattanooga, Tennessee. I am so excited that you guys are joining me tonight for this broadcast of Truth Tuesday. We always say all the time that God ministers this thing to us first before we minister it to anyone else. And this one has been on my heart so much. And I feel like this is just a message that God has really been in the past few weeks, just restating over and over and over and over to me. And I am just so excited to share this with you. I feel that there is going to be some breakthrough that happens tonight. A few minutes ago, I was sitting with my husband and all I could do was just let the tears fall. I couldn't even say what was bothering me, what was getting to me, but it was because this message is just so powerful. So I am going to get into it tonight. For those of you who are watching for the first time, we are DREEMM Ministry. DREEMM stands for Deliverance, Restoration, Education, and Empowerment for Me Ministries. Our ministry is located, I don't know why I got stumbled there. Our ministry is located in Cincinnati, Ohio. We are located at 636 Northland Blvd. Please feel free to join us on Sunday morning from 9 to 10 for 1 hour. You can also join us virtually as well. And then we meet here every Tuesday at 7 o'clock for Truth Tuesday. And this is a short sermon snippet that we typically give out. And sometimes we go deep dive on a Tuesday night. I think this one will go however God has ordained it to go. And I am going to try my best, my very best, to hold back the tears as I deliver this message that God has placed on my heart. And I hope that it blesses you as much as it has blessed me to be able to share this message with you. This is one that I shared a few weeks ago. We are going to do a special recap, and then I'm going to add in some additional pieces that we were not able to go through. Something a little bit different tonight as well. I'm not going to give the title of this sermon until the end. Oh, plot twist. So I will not give that out until the end of today's message. So you guys, let's jump right in this. We are going to start at 2 Kings, and we're going to read 4:1 through 7. 2 Kings 4:1 through 7. Let me get that up here. So first of all, it says, a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophet called out to Elijah, saying, your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord, and the creditor is coming to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. So Elijah said to her, what shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in your house? And she said, your maidservant has nothing in her house but a jar of oil. Then he said, go borrow vessels from everywhere, from all of your neighbors, empty the vessels, and do not gather just a few. So in other words, gather a lot of them. You don't need just 1 or 2. You need to gather a lot of these empty vessels. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you, and your sons then pour it into those vessels and set aside the full ones. Now, she started off with just a little jar. And he said, go gather all these vessels and take that one little jar that you have, and you're going to pour it, and there's going to be oil enough to fill all the other jars. Now, that is the impossible. That is like me taking this cup of water that I have on my desk, and you bringing me 7, 8, 12, 20, 25 vessels, and this one little cup of water is supposed to be enough to sustain and fill all the jars that are around me. That is it. That is the epitome of impossibility. But this is what the prophet is telling her to do. And then he said in verse 4, I've already read that, so let's go to 5. It says, so she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured it out. Now it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said to her sons, bring me another vessel. And he said unto her, there is not another vessel. So the oil ceased. It didn't stop until there were no more vessels to fill. Then in verse 7, it says, then she came and told the man of God, and he said, go sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. So there is going to be overflow. Before I get in there, let's start off with the first thing I noticed. First of all, this widow woman is not even given a name in the Bible. We don't know if her name is Sarah, Mary, Martha, Susan, Jane, Kai, LaShawn. We don't know if it's Deborah, if it's Yvonne. We have no idea what the woman is. We have no idea what her profession, or if she even had a profession, which I'm assuming she did not, because the Bible only tells us who her husband was. He was one of the prophets, a son of the sons of the prophets, and she is the wife of this man. And when the man passed away, her husband passed away, life changed for this particular woman. So let's go on to say we don't know her situation, we don't know her name, and many of us are going through situations right now where we don't even feel like ourselves. You don't feel that there is any significance to you, that you add any value, that it is just these things are just happening to you, and you feel like the nameless woman. In one season, for one of the things we're going to talk about, David, your current situation or your circumstance does not diminish your gift or the promise on your life. I need you to know that your current situation nor your circumstance, neither one of those can diminish the gifting or the promise on your life. In one season, we had David watching sheep and worshiping God in the field. And just like David is in his season of just nothing going on, I'm just worshiping and I'm just watching these sheep. Just like that, the widow woman was married. She was honoring her husband. She was taking care of her family, of her home. She was in a significant position because of who her husband was. And then life happens. As life often does, life happens. For David, he received an anointing that he didn't even ask for. He was anointed as the next king. He didn't go in for it. He didn't send for it. He didn't put in an application. He didn't ask nobody, can I do it too? He didn't even have it on his radar. But God chose him to be able to go through that next situation. And God chose him to be king. Just like this widow woman. This woman was married, happily living her life. And then circumstances happened where God called her husband home. And now her situation is changed. Life is lifing. As life typically does, life is lifing. In one season, we can go from a season of celebrating and having a good time and worshiping, and then all of a sudden, the shift happens, and we're not ready mentally to be able to handle what happens when the shifting takes place. I'm going to give you some things tonight to get you prepared and things that you need to do when life shifts, because it's going to happen. God didn't say that we were always going to live in a place here on earth of just sunshine and rainbows, where there would never be anything that ever changes. Everybody's going to live on forever. You're never going to experience a rainy day ever, but it's how you maintain, how you handle that situation. Your reaction, you can control. And so I'm going to talk to you tonight about controlling the reaction when life happens. So let's get into it. Thing number one, the first thing I want you to know is, one, don't get caught up in the reactions of others. You can't afford to get caught up in how everybody else is responding around you, what everybody else is thinking, what everybody else is saying, how everybody else is handling, how stressed out everybody else is, how frustrated everybody else is. If I was you, I would. You can't get caught up in that. You got to stay above it. One of the things we saw when Goliath, and I'm looking at 1 Samuel 17. 1 Samuel 17, that's where we're going right now. When Goliath came out, it said the soldiers were intimidated by him. It said actually they ran in fear because they were so afraid of him, because Goliath came out and he was terrorizing them. Just the sheer look of him. Have you ever looked at something that was so horrifying to you that you just became fearful of it? That was exactly what was happening here. Just his size, his weight, the way he carried himself, the way he spoke. He spoke to them as if they were less than, and they reacted in that mindset of, we can't handle him, we can't take him. So they ran away in fear. You've got to be one of those individuals. There's got to be something burning in the inside of you that says, I won't back down from this. I won't run from this. I won't get scared about this. I won't be intimidated about it. Even though in reality, I can see the situation, I've got to look at it with different lenses. I've got to look at it with my spiritual lenses, with my spiritual eyes. And you've got to get like David. When you start worshiping and you start building up a praise, even when you think about the situation and the reality of the situation, but I'm staying in my spiritual realm and I'm just going into a worship. God, I can't control that, but I can control how I respond to it. And I respond to it with worship. I respond to it by getting in my word. I respond to it by what I'm listening to. I can't listen to anything else, but I need to listen to word and have word coming into me and consuming it day and night. Because if you don't, you will allow the voice of the enemy to speak louder in your ears, and it'll keep you focused on what ifs. What if this happened? What if that happened? What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And it'll keep you focused on the situation that you're in and not focused on the amazing things that God can do. I just talked about the vessels a minute ago that the widow woman had. All she had was one small thing of oil, and then she had to go collect all of these jars and then pour what was in her one little small thing of oil into the jar to be able to sustain. She could get caught up in the, oh, well, what if this don't work? Well, all I got is a little bit of oil. How is that going to be enough to fulfill or sustain anything? How is that going to work out? That 1 + 1 don't equal 2 in that equation. So what I need to do is worry about, well, where else am I going to get oil from? Because I can't get it from out of here. So now instead of going to get jars, she's going to go find oil. Because I'm so caught up in trying to resolve the problem for myself that I'm not listening to God. I need to stop and hear what God said. And the only way you're going to hear it is that you worship. You live in a place of worship and you live in a place of word. And I need to stay in that place. The next thing we're going to talk about, number 2, you got to know where to go for help. You've got to know where to go from help. I can't listen to everybody right now. I got to know when to turn off the news. I got to know when to turn off the reality shows. I got to know when to turn off, this TV show, this series, this drama. I got to know when to put down social media. I got to know when to turn off the gossip sites. I got to know not to be watching what's happening in this star's life and in that pastor's life and in that person's marriage and in that person's relationship and with that person's child or this person's situation. I got to close all of that out. And I need to get in a place of worship and a place of word. And then I also got to know who I can rely on to give me a word, because you can't come into agreement with everybody. And some people that you tell your situation to may give you more fear than faith. And so right now, I can't be caught up in the fear that you're about to give me. I need to stay in a place of faith. So you're going to have to know, who can I go to right now to say, here's the situation. And they're going to encourage me like a David encouraged himself. They're going to give me word. Let me tell you, do you remember the last time you was in a situation like this? And this is how God showed up in that situation. And do you remember the last time you went through this battle? And this is how God showed up that time. And do you remember when you thought it wasn't going to come out, you weren't going to be able to pay your bills, you weren't going to feed your kids, you weren't going to be able to do this? And do you remember how God showed up that time? And while I'm talking about what God did for you, let me tell you how God did it for me, in case you don't know that God can do it. Let me tell you how God healed my body. You're going to have to be very careful who you allow in your ears at a time like this. I can't let everybody in right now because some people, our faith don't match up. It don't line up. I don't see God moving right now for you, or he's not going to speak to me through you. So I can't listen to you right now. I got to shut people out. It says the widow woman went to Elijah. When we look at 2 Kings, that's where she went to. I'm going to the prophet. I need to go to the source. My husband served God, and he worked with the prophet. And so I need to go to him to tell him this is the situation I'm in. I can't tell them, anybody else, that the collectors are coming to collect on a debt. And so they're going to take my sons, because people would have been telling her, oh, hide your children. Girl, you need to run away from here. You need to go somewhere. Oh, you know what? Sally went through that and they took her kids. You might as well just go ahead and give your kids up. No, I need to go to somebody who's going to be able to give me something more than this. I need somebody else. So you got to be very careful who you give your ears to in this season. It says where two or more gathered together in his name, he'll be in the midst. Who you gathered with? Who you touching and agreeing with? Who are you going, okay, we putting our faith together? Who's pulling you up when you feel yourself going down? Who's giving you a word to say you're coming up out of this and I'm going to hold your hand and I'm going to pull you through it? Who are you calling in the midnight hour when you feel like your faith is draining? Who's going to be that person to say, get up and run on? You're going to be able to walk up out of this. Who's giving you that word? And if you don't have that person, you can't be sharing your story with everybody. This is why you can't go on social media, and I don't know why this is a thing, going on social media, putting your problems out there and allowing everybody to comment on it, then getting mad at people who comment on your situation when they say crazy stuff. I can't share my story like that. I can't do that. I got to make sure that right now, while I'm going through it, my ears are only open to people who are going to give me word. My ears are only open to the word right now. I got to close everything else out. Close it out. Thing number 3, it says you have to pull on your past experiences to remind you that God will bring you out of this situation. You're going to have to pull on your past experiences to go, okay, wait a minute. God brought me out of that. I know God's going to bring me through this. So let's talk about where we see this at. Let's go to 1 Samuel 17. We're going to read 33 through 37. 1 Samuel 17, 33 through 37, and it says, Saul replied, you are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth. This is what Saul is telling to David, because David's going, listen, send me out, coach. He talking crazy to God's people. Send me out. I ain't never scared. I ain't never backing down. Listen, you ain't gonna talk about us like that. This uncircumcised Philistine. So David had to run his resume. Y'all know I'm a recruiter by trade. I tell y'all that all the time. I'm a recruiter by trade. That is my passion. It is where I love to be. Recruiting is my jam. And when you apply for a position, you got to submit your resume. Your resume tells the recruiter and the hiring manager, this is what I've done. Let me run it for you in case you didn't know who I am. And it introduces you to that particular leader or to that particular recruiter to say, I can do everything that you've put in that job description. I can do it. I can do it. And here's the proof that I can do it. Here's where I've done it at. Here's what I've achieved and I've accomplished in my background. This is what David is doing in verse 37. He's running his resume. He said, but David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. Let me run it for you. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, I struck it, and I rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair. It turned on me and I grabbed it by hair. I started fighting it. I struck it and I killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them because he has defied the armies of the living God. The living God, the Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. You got to run your resume. You got to be able to say to the enemy, listen here. let me tell you who I am. And let me tell you who I belong to. And let me tell you that my God is yet alive. And let me tell you that he is going to bring me through this situation. And when you thought I was down for the count, when you thought I was down and out, when you thought I wasn't going to get back up, let me tell you what he did last time. And because he strengthened me through that, I was able to fight a lion and I was able to fight a bear. So I'm not going to run from this. I'm not going to run from this. I'm not going to give up now. I'm not throwing in the towel. I'm not shedding another tear. You done got me mad. Sisters, you going to have to pull your hair back. You know, we pull our hair back in a ponytail when we mad and we ready to fight. That's where you going to have to get to in this seat. In this time, when life starts like this, you going to have to pull your hair back and you going to have to go into a worship that is almost like a warfare worship when you're calling on God and you're calling on him to move right now in the situation. God, I know you can do it. And sometimes it's not because we're telling God, I know you can do it because God forgot. But sometimes when the enemy is pushing down on you and he is trying to drown you, it is easy for you to get focused on the wrong thing. And I start focusing on the problem and feeling like I'm drowning instead of focusing on the fact that the enemy is using this to distract me. See, the next thing it says, you got to shut out the noise. This will be your focus, trying to get your focus off the problem and cause a distraction in a time where you need to faith it. I need faith right now. And so the enemy doesn't want you to re-look at the situations you've been through before that you come out of, because your faith will be encouraged and you'll be renewed and you'll get new strength. You'll feel revived. It's almost like, CPR. When somebody is in need of CPR and that first breath after they haven't been breathing, that deep breath, or when you've been up underwater and you come up for the first time, that deep breath. And the enemy is trying to stop you from taking that deep breath because he knows once you get it, you're going to keep breathing. And so I'm trying to keep you in a place where all you focus in on is the problem and you never focus in your eyes back onto God. The Bible says, I will look to the hills from which cometh my help coming from the Lord. And so I don't want you to look to the hills. I don't want you to look to where your help come from. I want to keep you so focused on what's wrong in your life that you never look up. I want to keep you so divided from the church. I want to keep your household divided, because if the two of you come together and remember that you're one, then I can't run roughshod in your house. I can't keep your children oppressed. I can't keep your marriage down. You guys get together and you sync up. When you start touching and agreeing on things, you can start conquering the enemy. So the enemy is trying to keep you focused on your marital problems. I'm trying to keep you focused on the fact that the children acting up. I'm trying to keep you focused on the fact that the bills are adding up. I'm trying to keep you focused on the fact that your job is in jeopardy. I'm trying to keep you focused on anything but God. That's why I started this thing out saying, you guys have got to be focused on worship and you've got to be focused on word. I got to say in those two places, because I need to encourage myself so my faith will rise up. Because when my faith starts to rise up, that's when I really start to war against the enemy. That's when I start praying harder. That's when I start, getting in my word and asking God. I start giving word back to the enemy. The Bible talks about when Jesus went through the fast for 40 days and 40 nights. And as soon as he came out, the enemy started attacking him immediately. Telling him different things that he was supposed to do. And Jesus had to tell him, for it is written. He had to give him word back. Well, if you don't know word, how do you give the enemy back word? And if your enemy knows enough word to give it to you, but twist it, which is exactly what we see him do in Genesis, did God not say that you can't have the fruit? Like, is that what he really said, Eve? Or did he say something else? And because Eve didn't hear it from God, she was easy to be manipulated by Satan. And that is exactly the same tool and trick that he's using today. So if I can keep you blinded to God's word, and I can keep you blinded to worship, and I can keep you so distracted that you get in a corner and you back up and allow him to keep taking shots at you, and you just taking shot after shot, and I'm just taking it and just taking it, and I'm not fighting back, the enemy is going to be able to conquer you. He's going to be able to conquer you and break you down. That's why it's important not only who you listen to, but it's also important that you have something rising up on the inside of you. I gotta have a word inside of me. I always say, and I know in Dream we say this all the time, when someone tells us a situation they're going to, what word are you standing on? What foundation are you standing on? So we can touch and agree on that thing. What are we praying for? What are we agreeing on? Because I don't want to be over here praying one thing and then you're over there praying something else, and we're both divided on what we asking God for. And neither one of us has even bothered to go to God and go, God, is this your word? Is this what we should be praying for in this season? Or are you telling us to pray for something else? We tie your hands because we're not even in agreement, and then we're not in an agreement with you. So you got to be able to have some words, some faith building up on the inside of you. So it's important that you have that word. You're eating that word. Just like if you went days without eating or drinking, what happens? Your natural body starts to break down. Well, the same thing happens to your spiritual body when you are not feeding your spiritual body, when you're not giving your spiritual body word, when all you getting is junk food. If I sit around here all day just eating cookies and candy all the time, what happens to my body? The same thing happens to your spiritual body if all you're putting in it is junk all day long. I'm just watching TV or letting the TV watch me or whatever, or whatever you're doing. I'm just on social media all day. I can run you a list of what's going on everybody's life because I'm in their feed all day long. Okay, but what does the word say? What does the word say about the situation you're in right now? I need to put some faith on it. And I can't be running to everybody else telling them, you pray for my situation. You pray for my situation. I'm in everybody's prayer line, but I ain't falling on my knees by myself. What happens when I get home? I'm back in this reality. Are you on your own knees? Are you calling on God for your situation? Or are you depending on the faith of somebody else? Well, I know Sister Susan can get a word through, so I'm going to ask Sister Susan to pray about it. I know brother such and so can get a prayer through, so I'm gonna call brother so and so. I know my mama know the Lord. I know my mama know the Lord. Okay, that's great, but do you know him? Because sometimes you ain't gonna be able to get to nobody else, and the enemy knows that if I can get you alone by yourself, because that is one of the first things he's gonna do is isolate you from everybody else. If I can get you alone by yourself, I can break you down. Because you don't have no relationship. So it's got to be relationship for self. So as I said, you got to shut out the noise. So 2 Kings 4:4. 2 Kings 4:4, it says, and when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons. That is what the prophet told the widow woman. Shut the door, close out all the noise, close out all the distractions, close out all the naysayers, close out anybody who's going to try to tell you God can't do it, close out anybody who's going to say, oh, all you got is that little bit of oil and you got all these jars. Well, baby, what you going to do with that? It seemed to me like you ain't got enough. You got to close all them out. All the people who going to tell you what God can't do, I got to close you out. Anybody who's going to come in and agree with the enemy against what God is trying to purpose in this season, I got to close you out because I can't hear you right now. And especially if you are struggling with your faith yourself and you're struggling with believing it yourself, the enemy is going to send people in to speak what he wants to speak over you, the curses that he wants to speak over your life. And so he's going to send people for you. And unfortunately, if you don't have enough inside of you to go, I got to shut you out, baby. You start to talk crazy. I can't listen to that. Da, 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 da. Y'all know when we were kids, we would cover our ears and be like, la, 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 la. When you didn't want to hear something, that's how you got to be with the enemy. You got to go back to that la, 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 la. And instead of saying la, 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 you need to cover your ears and just say Bible verses. I don't want to hear anything you got to say. I just want to hear what God is saying right now. And to make sure I only hear what God is saying, I'm put on my earbuds on and just put on my Bible app so I can't even hear the enemy. I can't even hear the distractions coming. I'm turning off my phone notifications because I don't want to see it. I'm turning off my ringer because I can't speak to nobody right now. Right now, I just need to get in a place with God. So it said, he told her, close the door behind you and your sons. Go into your own house where the situation is occurring, where you are reminded of the situation. Go back into that place. That place. Close the door with just you, the situation, and your kids, and start pouring. Some of you need to get into your own home and start pouring in your own home, pouring out worship, pouring out praise, pouring out adoration. This is not me asking God for anything. I am just pouring out before him. I am bowing down, worshiping before him. I am not getting caught up in the situation. I'm not asking God to be my genie and open this door. God, I just want to pour out before you. I want to be like the woman who knelt down before Jesus and poured out her perfume. Y'all know who I'm talking about. And she washed his feet with her hair and her tears. And she just cried and worshiped him. I don't care who else is around me. I don't care what else is going on. I don't care who's looking at me crazy. I just want to pour out before him. That's where you've got to be. In 1 Samuel 17, 28 through 30. 1 Samuel 17, 28 through 30. And I'm sorry, y'all, I'm not moving the scriptures because I want to stay in this. So if I get you lost, go back and just re-listen to what scripture I said to go to. 1 Samuel 17, 28 through 30. It says, when Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the man, he burned with anger at him and asked, why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. Now, what have I done, said David, can I even speak? After being told off by his brother when he's only asking a question, who is this man talking about us? And the brother starts to tell him, I know your heart is wicked. I know you only came to watch the battle. And where are the little sheep that you were supposed to be watching? Trying to remind him of who he was. I want to remind you, because I know you just wicked, because now you got this calling and this anointing on your life. Y'all know how people act when God starts to anoint you and start to call you out of the place that you were when you were lost, and he's calling you out of that place, and that people want to remind you of where he called you from. This is for you. And so he said, now what have I done, said David. Can't I even speak? He then turned away. While his brother talking, I'm going to turn away. He turned away to someone else and brought up the matter. I ain't going to even listen to you no more. This is what some of y'all need to do. Y'all need to just turn away. Let him keep talking back here. But you ain't listening. I'm not in that conversation no more. I done moved over here because I'm going to ask somebody else. Don't get caught up on the person, because like I said in the beginning, you may not be able to control what they say, how they say it, how they talk about you, how they ridicule you, what they say about your past, them bringing up the mistakes you made. You may not be able to control that, but what you can control is how you respond to it. I can't respond like I used to respond. Old me would have been ready to fight. New me can't respond like that. Yeah, you're right. God called me out of that. He sure did. Yep. And then you're going to have to turn away. I'm not going to get caught up in this anymore, because God is moving you to a different position. He's moving you to the calling on your life. He's moving you to operating where he's told you to operate at. So I can't be who he called me to be, still caught up in old things. I can't be where he's calling me to be, still doing old things, still doing things that I know don't even line up with what God is calling me to. I can't get there. I got to stay where God is calling me to. This is to you, the ones who are coming out of the wilderness. You coming all out of the darkness. I see you. I can hear it. I can feel you pulling. God is calling you into who you are. I can't get caught up in what I used to be. Like the Bible says, you don't put new wine in old wineskin. I can't be the old wineskin waiting for God to put something new in me. You're going to have to take that stuff off and turn from it. I can't go back to it. That's where you need to be now. The next thing, it says, you got to know your weapon and know your gifting. God can do great miracles with what you have in your hands. All the widow woman had in her home was a little bit of oil. That's all she had. But she knew what to do when you put me in the kitchen, because that's where her gifting was. She was a wife at this time. And so her position was taking care of the home, taking care of the children, making sure her husband was okay, making sure her home was taken care of. So what was in her hands may have seemed like a little bit to somebody else when you're thinking of the magnitude of the pressure that she's under, because this woman has to now take what she has in her hand. And if it's not enough, I got to figure out how to make money from somewhere, because the creditors are about to take my son. And God blessed the little bit that she had to be able to bring forth a great multitude. And then when we look at 2 Kings 4:2, 2 Kings 4:2, it says, tell me, what do you have in your home? This is the widow woman. And she said, your maidservant has nothing but a jar of oil. God was able to multiply that. And 1 Samuel 17:49, it says, reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and he struck the Philistine on the forehead. And the stone sank into his forehead and he fell down on the ground. The Philistine fell down. David didn't take a sword. He didn't take a gun. He didn't take a shield. He didn't take none of that. He took what he knew how to use. I know how to use a slingshot, and I'm a bad brother with a slingshot. You don't know what I can do with it. You're laughing because to you it seems like child's play what I got in my hand. It seems like it's not sufficient enough, but God has gifted me with what I have in my hand. So you can look at it, devil, and you can laugh if you want to. You can think it ain't bad what I'm about to sling at you, but God has gifted me in this area. So where he's given me gifting at, I'm going to use what's in my hand, because when I get preoccupied trying to use what God has gifted you in, that's when I fail. God didn't give me the gifting to operate over there. So I need to stay where he's telling me to be at, because he's called me for such a time as this. When I was talking to Apostle earlier, and we were talking about Deliverance Ministries, and I was telling her, God gave me a good analogy. A deliverance ministry is like the ER. It's where you come to when you are in critical condition and you know, I need help right now. I need help. That is what we are for. But in DREEMM, we often say we're not a traditional ministry. We're not a traditional church. We are not the people you go to for regular care. So like if you are, for instance, there's different doctors in the medical community. If I need somebody who's going to help me maintain my high blood pressure and get me on regulated blood pressure medicine and check on me on a regular basis, then there's a doctor for that. If I have cardiac problems, there's a doctor for that. If I need neurosurgery, there is a doctor for that. There's a neurologist that I can go to. If I'm having spinal issues, there is a doctor for that. But if I'm in critical condition and I need help right now and I need to deal with this to help me get regulated till I can get to that doctor, then that's where I go. I go to the ER for that. And then if you go to the ER and they treat you, what do they do before you leave? Do you have a doctor that you can follow up with? That is the same thing we do after we take somebody through deliverance here at DREEMM. We want to know that there's going to be somebody to help you sustain and keep your deliverance. So we are not going to be the ones going, oh, and we're trying to be your church. Oh, and we're trying to be this. Oh, and we're trying to be the neurologist. Oh, and we're trying to be your family practice doctor. Oh, and we're trying to be your cardiologist. Oh, and we're trying to be your surgeon. Oh, and we're not trying to do all those pieces. We understand the part of the body that we operate in, and that is where we stay. We stay in that part of the body, but we are connected to other ministries. So when you need somebody who's going to be able to help you maintain afterwards, we want to be able to connect you with the ministry that's going to be able to do that and walk you through maintaining your deliverance. Because what we don't want to do is see you do a revolving door, a cycle, to see you keep cycling back in. Every time you go out, the enemy attacks and you come right back in. And then you go out and the enemy attacks and you come right back in because you don't fail again. We understand that we fall, but the idea is so that you get strengthened. So when the enemy tries to come at you with the same weapon, you are not falling every time. You are being strengthened enough to be able to fight. And then you become a testimony to somebody else to strengthen your brethren. So I will be able to tell my sister who's going through it, listen, I went through that. Let me tell you, don't open that door. I already did that. Don't do that. Don't go there. Don't connect with them. Don't go over here. I've already done that. not out of shame, but because I want you to know I've done it so you don't have to. So let me tell you, this isn't what happened when I went through it, and this is how God had to deliver me, but you don't have to do all that. You can avoid that. If you just stay on the straight and narrow, if you just keep going straight, just God has a whole nother plan. You will bypass the pitfall that almost drowned me. I'm going to tell you how to bypass that. That's what I'm going to do. And if you should happen to find yourself in a pitfall yourself, let me tell you what we need to do in order to connect with God so that we can get you up out of it. And then help you sustain staying out of it so that you can continue to run on, so that you can continue to minister to other people, so that you can continue to come out of this. So you guys, in this last verse, I said 1 Samuel 17:49, it says that when David, when he slung that slingshot and that rock came out and popped Goliath in the forehead, and Goliath fell like that. Just like that. That's how it happened. So let me tell you now. Now I'm going to tell you what this message tonight is called. It is called Goliath Has Fallen. Goliath has fallen. I told Apostle and my husband I had a dream. And in the dream, there was a unique situation happening in the office. And God came in such a way and changed the situation that I was in a state of shock and disbelief. Like just stunned. Like, oh my God, what does this mean? Like, because the way God moved, it was in such a way that it was unexpected to me. It wasn't something that I thought God was going to do or how he was going to do it. Because, you know, sometimes we have in our mind, can we just be real? We have in our mind how we think God going to resolve the problem. Like, God, if you would just allow this to happen, this will solve it. You know, it'd be easy. We just do this. But God had resolved it in such a way that I was just struck, just state of shock. Like, it happened like that. And in the dream, I send a text message. I'm getting ready to send a text message to Apostle and to my husband. And in a text message, I write, Goliath has fallen. And that was all I saw. That's all I said in the text message. Goliath has fallen. And when I woke up from that dream, I had such a peace about a situation that I was dealing with that I just did not feel the stress anymore. And I just began to worship God for Goliath falling. And, you know, in reality, it ain't happened yet. But you know what? I'm going to worship God because I believe that he's already showed me it's all right. So what are you stressing for? So when I tell you this message is as much an encouragement to me first as it is to you, I really 1000% mean that. This was God's way of letting me know you going through this, but let me tell you how you can get through it. Let me give you some pointers first. And now I want you to go share it with my people. So I share this message with you, not lightly at all, not saying that, oh my God, you know, everything is gonna turn around in the midnight hour and you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, that's true. But I want to tell you while you're going through it, these are some steps that you can start putting in place because like I said, you can't control lifing. You can't control, you know, issues coming up. You can't stop problems from occurring. You can't control, you know, when the waves will hit you as they hit us in life, but you can control how you respond to it. So if you hear nothing else tonight, hear that. Satan, no matter what happens, I'm going to control my response. Then here's what I'm going to do. I am going to worship and I am going to get in my word. And I'm going to stay in both those places. And every time you take another swing at me, I'm going to worship even harder. And I'm going to go harder in my word. And I'm going to fast. And I'm going to pray. And I am going to worship. But my prayer is not going to be, God, I need you to change the situation. God, please change the situation. God, please change the situation. Where's your worship at? Where your worship at? God already knows the problem. He already know that. So I'm not going to go before him and keep reminding him what he already know. God, you ain't changed it yet. You don't change it in the next 15 minutes, then I'm going to change the situation. If you don't do something, I'm going to do it. And that's what we do. We take control back from God. We take the problem back from him and we start working out our own solutions. What is waiting on God means? It means your hands are not busy trying to fix it. God, bind my hands from fixing and operating in the position that I'm trying to put you in. If I'm saying you're my sustainer, if I'm saying you're my provider, if I'm saying you are my protector, if I'm saying you are my source, God, help my hands not get in the way trying to operate and manipulate a situation that I'm saying I'm giving to you. Let me sit still and get quiet and listen and wait on you to give me the answer. And until you give me the answer, God, help me to understand what to do in the wait. Is what to do in the wait to go collect jars? And if that is what it is, then let me do that. If what to do in the wait is go get some stones, then let me go do that. But help me understand what you need me to do. And if you need me to do is just stay focused and praying, just keep fasting and believing, then God, help me get stronger in that area too. And how he strengthens our faith is through adversities and challenges. It's just like weightlifting. It's just like bodybuilding. How you strengthen muscles, you got to use the muscles. You can't strengthen what you don't use. And so that's how God is building your faith, by putting you in opportunities for you to step up your faith through challenges and adversities. Just like Job. God said, have you looked at my servant Job, to Satan when he said he was going to and fro looking for somebody to devour? He said, have you considered my servant Job? Job was an upright standing man. He followed God's word. He believed in it. And although there was chaos and craziness all around him, keep that away from me. I'm not going to let that in my circle. Are you like that? God, I'm focusing in on you. And are you considering me worthy? That was something else I had to learn to say, God. Are you considering me worthy to go through this experience? Have you counted me worthy to say, have you considered my daughter Kai? And if you can, God, help me to be strong enough to endure. Don't let me grow weary in well-doing, for in due season your word said I will reap. And if he's counting you worthy to go through this, then let your prayer be, God, help me to endure. Help me to represent you in this situation. Silence my tongue when my mouth starts to respond to what's happening around me. Keep my mouth shut. Don't let me come in agreement with what the enemy is trying to say, God. And don't let me misrepresent you in this situation, so that you get the glory from this, so that people won't look at it and go, oh my goodness, well done, Kai, you did a great job. Let them say, oh, God is awesome. Because only God could have did that. Only God could take a little bit of oil and multiply it to the place where it fills up multiple jars. Only God can do it. So let them see you in the situation. Is that your prayer? Is that your prayer? Is that where your faith is tonight? As you are fighting Goliath, know that Goliath will fall. But what you do while you wait for him to fall is just as significant. So you guys, that has been my message tonight. I tried not to cry, but God knows my heart and he knows what's on it. You guys continue to pray for us as we continue to pray for each one of you. Continue to worship in your waiting. Continue to read your word. Continue to fast, you guys, right now. I'm going to tell you right now, the Cunningham family, we are turning off circular everything. Everything is silenced right now because we are just listening to God. We're just listening to him. We're waiting on him to move. And we are all in agreement as we wait on this. And we're going to invite you to join us. We're going to invite you to join us. We are praying daily as a family. We're praying separately, individually. We're worshiping. We are taking communion every single day. And we are spending time on our knees in worship. just before God, just on our knees in worship. And we're doing this for 7 days. We're going to invite you to join us. Join in with us as we do this and as we get ready. For those who did not know, we have ordination service coming up for the leaders of DREEMM. That is coming up on the 31st. So we are so excited about that. And we are just getting ready for a mighty move of God as he continues to move throughout not only our families, but your families as well. So we are praying for you. Thank you for tuning into this Truth Tuesday. And I pray that this message blesses your heart as you continue to bless and worship God right along with us. You guys have an amazing rest of your week. And don't forget to let us know how God is showing up in your life. Go ahead and tell us. You can reach out to us on our email, and I'm going to put that up in 2 seconds. There it is. Our email, dream002@gmail.com. Put that in. Let us know your testimonies, and we will definitely share them here. And for those of you who are looking for more information about DREEMM, where can I find out about you guys? Where can I visit you? Like, what do you do? What is Deliverance Ministry? Go to our website. Check out our website. We have a lot of information there. And you can also reach out to us with any questions that you may have about Deliverance as well. So you guys have a blessed and amazing night, and I will see you next time.